Let's get it. Let's get it. All right, let's jump into it.
Let's do it.
Man, it's a lot going on in the world right now. So, it's one of these things that unfortunately, a lot of the turmoil that we're seeing, it has some level of effect on the economy when we're talking about
Hmm.
global economics. So with so much stuff that's happening in the Middle East right now, we could talk about it with our guest a little bit later, Hakeem Jeffries. But with everything happening in the Middle East, where do you see oil prices going next? And could this keep inflation higher than expected?
To be very a great question. To be very honest, for my technicians, tip of the day: um, put your Fibonacci retracements over the since inception chart of crude or USO. Despite the news, it shot up to 77.62, but for a history lesson, if we're looking at the all-time range, it's really hovering below that 50% retracement. So even though I had a short-term move, and I had a conversation with a couple people about this in the past, but the news doesn't always move the market as much as you think it will.
Hmm.
You would have thought oil was going to shoot up to $100 a barrel the way that the news looked. But it's retraced today. It's almost at $69. So um, even going back to 2020 when oil went negative, the oil trade that used to be there in 2005 through 2010 is not there. It's a decent trade, but the idea of it going to 100 or $125 a barrel, I think, is overhyped and probably won't happen. So I
Yeah,
think we're staying at 65 to 70 range for a while.
I think it's one of these commodities that's is super speculative. Like when we were trading oil options, it in futures, it becomes it's tricky, right? Like you're in a
Yeah.
space there's no control, and you never know when a global conflict can happen, like what has happened with Israel and Iran. But just from a geographical standpoint, this one, depending on the longevity of it, will determine some things about oil, right? There could be a key catalyst when we talk about how oil is transported throughout the world.
Hmm.
So if you look at the transportation through the Strait of Hormuz, 20 to 30% of the world's oil is transported through there. And so if this is an area of
You're
conflict,
smart. Y'all wrote a book before?
we got to do research before we come on here,
Got to do the research. So yeah,
right?
go ahead.
30% of the world's oil is transported through that strait. And so if you're talking about escalated geopolitical tension, you can see how the prices could spike in the short term. And so
Mhm.
I know when people look at the conflict and we kind of feel like, how is this affecting us? How is this affecting us? Well, this is a major conflict. If not, and who knows what's going to happen, right? Because
Yeah.
it seems like it's escalated over the past week or so. If we don't see any type of resolution, if we don't, we could start to see prices of oil start to trade higher. I just don't like to trade the commodity itself because of the
No.
how speculative it is and the amount of control that we have. Like we can't predict geopolitical tensions, which makes it like really uncertain for me.
The highest I have it getting to is $102.43. And the probability of that happening is less than 25%. I know we talked about lack of predictability, but Rashad, you are a historian. How would you use like AI or ChatGPT to at least have an understanding of how frequently these things can happen for the investors watching tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think even outside of that, it's just good to have a strong grasp of history, right? And obviously, this situation in the Middle East is something that obviously is nothing new. It's been going on for a long period of time. Whether you're talking about Iran, whether you're talking about Israel, whether you're talking about OPEC, Saudi Arabia, there's extremely complicated nuances that I think that you need to just be aware of as a person, all right, but also as an investor. So you need to know that obviously Iran and Israel has a conflict, but Iran and Saudi Arabia traditionally are on other opposite sides of the spectrum as well. They recently have shown some solidarity with the prince, condemning what Israel's done and showing solidarity with Iran. But Iran has kind of been an adversary to um, Iran has been an adversary to Saudi Arabia. So when
Hmm.
we talk about oil production, as he said, them stopping that or threatening to stop that is not just a threat to the West. It's also a threat to the oil-rich countries in the region who they've traditionally been at odds with.
Yeah.
So stop letting ships going through that strait. Really, what it impacts is oil more than anything, right? And that's something that will obviously hurt the American economy, but will also hurt the other Arab state economy as well. So, you know, it's something that I think has to get worked out with diplomacy. Even
For
me
sure.
being in China, China is a strong ally of Iran, and so is Russia, and America is the strongest ally of Israel. Saudi Arabia is kind of caught in the middle. You have countries like Qatar and Jordan, who's also somewhere in the middle. They're politically tied with America, but their population obviously is Arab, so they can't go too far because they kind of have to maintain good standing with their citizens. So politics is very, very, very interesting, very complicated, especially in that part of the world. So as an investor, you don't have to be a historian on geopolitics, but I think that you should at the very least have some baseline information so you can know, because these trends, not only if this, like, let's say this particular conflict, this has the potential to not only affect oil, but it has the potential to affect the global economy.
Right.